You wake up. You hear footsteps in the hallway. You hear someone calling your name. But when you open the door, there's no one there. Later, a voice whispers something in your ear. You turn around. Again, no one. Then you notice patterns in the wallpaper. They're moving. You blink. They're still there. This isn't a nightmare. You're not dreaming. This is your reality. But what happens when your reality no longer matches everyone else's? What happens when your mind begins to rewrite the world around you? This is schizophrenia, a condition so complex, so misunderstood that even today, science can't fully explain it. It blurs the line between perception and delusion, between self and other, between reality and imagination. And it raises a terrifying question. How much of your reality is just a fragile construction of your brain? Schizophrenia affects about 1 in every 100 people worldwide. It doesn't discriminate. It affects men, women, people of all cultures, all ages. And yet, for most of history, it was seen not as an illness, but as madness. Those who heard voices were once called prophets. Those who saw things others couldn't were feared, exiled, or worse. It wasn't until the 20th century that we began to understand this isn't a character flaw. It's not possession. It's not imagination. It's the brain itself breaking its own rules. But what exactly is schizophrenia? It's not a single symptom. It's not just hearing voices. It's a syndrome, a complex disorder that affects the way you think, feel, and perceive the world. People with schizophrenia may experience auditory hallucinations, voices that seem external, distinct, and persistent. Delusions, fixed false beliefs like thinking you're being watched or controlled. Disorganized thinking, jumping between ideas, incoherent speech. Emotional flattening, reduced expression, even when feelings are strong. Cognitive decline, difficulty focusing, remembering, or making decisions. But the most terrifying part, to the person experiencing it, it all feels real. When someone with schizophrenia hears a voice, it doesn't sound like a thought. It sounds like someone standing next to them. The voice may whisper, command, insult, or even comfort. And because the brain's logic circuits are impaired, the person can't easily distinguish what's real and what's not. They might see people who aren't there, feel sensations no one else can feel, believe things that defy logic, and defend them as passionately as you defend your own memories. And yet, in many cases, they still function. They talk, they walk, they eat. They live inside a world no one else can see and often hide it. So what causes this fracture in reality? Science points to a mix of genetics, brain chemistry, and early environmental stress. People with schizophrenia often have differences in brain structure, particularly in the hippocampus, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex. One key suspect is dopamine, a neurotransmitter involved in attention, learning, and the reward system. In schizophrenia, dopamine appears to be overactive in certain pathways. This may cause the brain to assign too much significance to neutral events, a passing car, a flickering light, a random phrase. This process is called aberrant salience. It means the brain starts creating connections that aren't real, finding meaning in noise. And when that happens, reality begins to melt. You might start to believe that a stranger's glance is a coded message, that a billboard was placed there to warn you, that the TV is speaking directly to you. And once your brain starts down that path, it doesn't want to stop. But here's the most disturbing part. You don't need to have schizophrenia to question your reality. Even a healthy brain constructs a version of reality based on incomplete information. Your senses filter data. Your memory fills in gaps. Your attention chooses what to ignore. Your brain is not a camera. It's a storyteller. Sometimes the story gets rewritten. In experiments, even healthy participants have heard phantom voices in white noise, seen faces in static, believed they were being watched, when none of it was true. These are called hallucination-like experiences, and they exist on a spectrum. Schizophrenia is not a binary switch. It's a scale, and all of us are somewhere on it. So if the line between reality and delusion is that thin, What is reality? Is it simply what most people agree on? Is it something that can be measured or felt? If your brain believes something completely, if your emotions respond, if your senses react, is that experience real to you, even if it's not to anyone else? These are not just medical questions. They are philosophical ones. They touch the core of what it means to be human, to trust your mind, to navigate a world that you can never fully verify. That's why schizophrenia is more than a disorder. It's a mirror, a reflection of how fragile our reality truly is. To understand schizophrenia, we have to understand the brain, not as a machine, but as a system of perceptions, filters, and narratives. The brain doesn't just receive reality, it constructs it. Everything you see, hear, and feel is being constantly interpreted by billions of neurons firing in patterns, translating signals into experience. And when that system begins to glitch, the world changes. In people with schizophrenia, one of the key differences lies in how the brain processes salience, the ability to determine what matters and what doesn't. In a typical brain, irrelevant stimuli are filtered out. A flickering lamp? Just background noise. A car horn outside? Not important unless it's directed at you. But in schizophrenia, this filter breaks. The brain starts assigning importance to everything. That flicker? A warning. That horn? A message. That coincidence? Proof. This breakdown leads to delusions, not because the person is gullible or irrational, but because their brain is misfiring significance into places where there should be none. But this isn't just a dopamine imbalance, it's more complex. Brain imaging studies show that people with schizophrenia have abnormal connections between brain regions. The default mode network involved in self-referential thinking becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and control, weakens. The result? Thoughts become louder. Boundaries between self and world blur. Sometimes people feel that their thoughts are being broadcast, that someone is inserting ideas into their head, or that their actions are being controlled from outside. From the outside, it sounds impossible, but to the person experiencing it, it's terrifyingly real. Imagine not being able to trust your own mind, not being able to tell what's you and what isn't, what's real and what's imagined. And now, imagine being told, it's all in your head. Just ignore it. Get over it. That's what millions of people with schizophrenia face every day. It's not just a mental condition. It's a social stigma, a label, a misunderstanding. In films and media, schizophrenia is often portrayed as violence, chaos, or split personalities. But that's not reality. Most people with schizophrenia are not dangerous. They are vulnerable. They are often isolated, misunderstood, and afraid. Many know that their thoughts aren't normal. Some even know their hallucinations aren't real, but that doesn't make them stop. Because the brain isn't just a thinking machine. It's a feeling machine. And logic alone can't overpower what feels true at the deepest level. There are moments of clarity. There are treatments that help. Antipsychotic medications, cognitive therapy, structured support. But there is no cure, and that's the hardest part. For many, schizophrenia is a lifelong companion, one that comes and goes, one that hides and reappears, one that whispers from the shadows even in moments of calm. Yet despite the pain, some find meaning, some find insight, some see their condition not as a curse, but as a window into the hidden layers of consciousness. In fact, throughout history, many figures believed to be visionaries, mystics, or prophets may have experienced symptoms of schizophrenia. They described voices. They saw visions. They felt chosen. Were they ill or enlightened? We may never know. Because schizophrenia forces us to question something deeper. What is reality? Is it what we all agree on? Is it what science can measure? Or is it something personal, something shaped by perception? If your world feels real to you, if your emotions respond, if your memories build around it, then even a hallucination can feel like the truth. And that's where the line between madness and meaning starts to dissolve. Because maybe schizophrenia isn't just a flaw in the brain. Maybe it's a reminder that all of us are one fragile connection away from seeing a different world. So, what is schizophrenia? A disorder? A malfunction of the brain? A crack in the architecture of the self? Or is it something more profound? A glimpse into how thin the line truly is between sanity and chaos. A reminder that the human mind is not a fortress of logic, but a delicate symphony of chemicals, memories, and fragile perceptions. We like to believe that reality is objective, that our version of the world is solid, fixed, unquestionable. But schizophrenia shatters that illusion. It shows us that perception is not absolute, that the mind can fabricate entire worlds. That truth is not always shared, and sometimes not even accessible. And in that sense, schizophrenia is not just a condition, it's a mirror held up to the rest of us. Because if the mind can break, then it means it was never unbreakable. And if one person can live inside a reality no one else sees, then maybe all of us are just a few neural signals away from our own alternate version of the world. So next time you meet someone lost in their own mind, don't look away. Don't reduce them to a diagnosis. Don't call them broken. Because maybe, just maybe, they're walking through a storm we cannot see. A storm that could one day touch any of us. And in that shared fragility lies the very thing that makes us human: empathy. But perhaps the most haunting question isn't what schizophrenia is, but what it reveals. Because inside those fragmented thoughts, inside those hallucinations and delusions, there is a message. A message not from madness, but from the very edges of what it means to be conscious. Schizophrenia tells us that the mind is not a machine. It's not a computer with clean code and perfect logic. It is chaos and beauty. It is electricity dancing with memory. It is a battlefield where past and present collide, and sometimes no one wins. And maybe that's what we fear most. Not the illness, but the idea that our minds are more fragile than we want to admit. That reality is not a wall, but a thread. And that any one of us could wake up tomorrow and find that thread unraveling. Still, within that vulnerability lies a strange kind of hope. Because if the mind can break, it also means it can rebuild. And if someone can live through a world of voices, of shadows, of disconnection, and still come back, still speak, still try, then maybe there is nothing more powerful than that resilience. In the end, schizophrenia is not just a medical condition. It's a human story of perception, of identity, of survival. And maybe the question isn't how to fix those who see the world differently, but whether we can learn to see a little more like them. Not to lose ourselves, but to understand what it truly means to be whole, even when the pieces don't quite fit.